For decades, the name Charles Manson has been synonymous with evil, horrible crimes, and now lies. The time has come to tell the real stories, to expose the fabrications, and to set the record straight. This is the Redemption Podcast Show, and I'm its host, John Krotek. On this exclusive series of the Truth Files, Jason Freebird Freeman, grandson of the notorious cult leader, and myself will discuss facts and reveal truths never been told before. Jason has no doubt justice will prevail. The truth is on his side. So is redemption. Thank you for listening. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Redemption Podcast Show, where authentic, truthful conversation sets the soul free. It's been one of those days. Jason's back with us, Jason Freebird Freeman, good buddy of ours. And down in Florida, having a warm time down there. And then up in Boston area, we got JJ, to the friends who know him. His name's John Michael Jones. He was a friend of Charles Manson for 18 plus years, grew up in the city of Boston or the town of Boston, depending on how you look at it. He has an ethical code that is rock solid. Handshakes, what you say goes, you live by your word. And those are kinds of the things that we need more of these days. And he's back on the show for a second go around because JJ's got a lot to say straight from the heart about Charles Manson. Welcome to the show, and let's get rolling.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, so we spoke a little bit last time. You revealed some stuff, JJ, that a lot of people didn't realize, and what I got out of the conversation about Charles Manson, Charlie, known to you and to those that knew him, but is just how much spirit he did have. And how he was in this system that dampened that spirit, but yet he did everything he could to survive in that world. Tell the listeners how you met Jason and how you got involved in all of this Charles Manson family narrative.
You know, it's funny because not long before Jason came in the picture, Charlie used to. He used to send those close to him, what I called out on missions. Like, I need you to try to find this person for me, or look up this person, see what you can find out on this person. But anyway, and I was good at that. So he would always like to send me to look in the backgrounds of certain people or try to find. And I don't mean in a nefarious way, or, it's just people from his past that he was close to. And anyway, he sent me on this mission to find Junior. He really, in his heart of hearts now, towards the end of his life, we all knew he was suffering the early stages of dementia, but this was at a time before that. So it wasn't like, I had any clue that, he just refused to believe Junior was gone. Like, I know by this time he's heard about the suicide and all that stuff. But anyway, he wanted me to find anything I could on Junior. And I sent away for Junior's death certificate. And if I remember correctly, I think it was in Colorado. I think it might have been.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I had to send Colorado like $14, but they sent me a copy of his death certificate, and it was under the name Jay White. But Charlie's like, that's not his name. And I'm like, no, I know. Listen, he changed his name. But I think because of that, I don't know if he was holding on to hope. And then he says, well, do you think he might have had kids? What if he had kids? And I says, well, Charlie, it would be next to impossible for me to find. This is all I could find on, because I'm telling you, and I'm good at what I do when it comes to looking for people and finding information. I promise you, Jay White did a phenomenal job avoiding any attention, media spotlight. Same with Rosie. Rosie did a absolute phenomenal job covering his tracks and protecting him. Make a long story short, I said, Charlie, I'll try to find out what I can. And there was a buddy of mine I was really close to, and he knew of my connection to Charlie and my recent mission of trying to find Junior. And he says to me, man, he's like, yo, bro, you got to turn on CNN now. And I says, why? He says, just turn it on quick. And I'm like, man, so I stumble for the remote. I throw on CNN, and there's Jason Freeman. And what are the odds? Because, bro, Charlie couldn't have sent me on this mission. It couldn't have been a month ago. So,
yeah,
it gives me chills to think about. Like, it's odd. Charlie, I don't want to get into this aspect of it, but there was something special about the old man where he did the things that had no explanation. He knew things about me that, I don't want to sound like one of those conspiracy theory voodoo believe in ghosts and all. I don't, man. I'm so far from that God. But sometimes Charlie would do things that just still has my short hairs on end, like just standing up. Like I don't know how he did it. But anyway, long story short, boom, there's Jason, and there's something about Jason. Now, being in Charlie's life, you're used to. I hate to say it like this, but freaks coming forward like I'm Charles Manson's stepson's man's grandson's niece. Like everyone
is related to him somehow. He's got like a million kids. Yeah.
You've got so many of these phonies that come. I don't know whether they do it for attention or whatever, but something about Jason grabbed my attention, because normally I would have just shut that right off. Like I don't want to watch this garbage. Here's a man that's, in my eyes, and then I'm a street smart. I'm a very smart guy. Here's a guy who's used to fighting in cages. Okay, here's a warrior. Here's a warrior, because I love MMA and I know everything about what it takes to be. It takes a special breed of man to get in a cage and fight to the death, basically, until you can't fight no more. They're modern day gladiators. But for every time this gladiator mentioned the word father, or whenever he talked about his father, Junior, tears welled up in his eyes. Now, either this guy's an award-winning actor, or there's some emotion here that you're Matthew Roberts and all the other ones that come forward to claim to be children of Charlie or real relatives of Charlie never showed before. I'm talking genuine emotion.
Yeah, good stuff.
There was something there in Jason's eyes that I was convinced.
Yeah, JJ, the time that we talked at that period in that area, I look back and watch that video just because I know that it takes a lot for me to get emotional, but when I do, there's a purpose behind it. And it took me just this past year and a half to even say my father's name and my grandfather's name without tearing up. So I come a long way, but you're right.
Yeah.
I did show it.
You have come a long way, because when I first met you a year and a half, going on 2 years now, you were very emotional, like JJ says. You were very emotional, and every time you talked about your family, whether it was Charles Manson, your granddad, or your dad, or even anybody in your family, it was like that. It was emotional. So you're right, JJ. That's the thing about Jason, is the guy is as authentic as it can be. Straight.
Oh my God, bro! There's certain things in life you cannot fake, and not for me anyway. I can smell bullshit a mile away. But Jason Freeman, unless you know him and spend time with him and give him that chance, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people, but anyway, I'm not going to go that route. But what I'm getting at is it goes beyond that with Jason. Like if you spend time with Charlie, like I have, and I'm talking a lot of time, I've been in the same room with him. I've looked into his eyes. I've spent time with Jason, looked into his eyes. I'm telling you, if Jason Freeman was acting, then I'm the Pope, right? So I told Charlie, this guy on CNN the other day, look, you gotta hear me out, Charlie. And he's like, oh, what's he look like? Do you know what? Now Charlie wants me to find everything I can out about Jason. So I wrote him a letter. And that's how we met. And Jason, I was shockingly, now, but I got to share this story with you. All right, so hold on. Finding Jason wasn't easy either. But I found a few Jason Freemans. So my only hope, I wrote them all. There were like 4 or 5 Jason Freemans. Now, can you imagine the 4 that weren't the real Jason? Getting a letter, hi, I'm Charles Manson. I'm a friend of your grandfather, Charles Manson.
Yeah.
So I probably freaked out a bunch of guys. So I got to change my name. You know?
I wrote 4 Jason Freemans, 4, maybe 5, but one of them wrote back, and I got the real Jason Freeman. So, and if those other Jason Freemans are listening, I totally apologize. I didn't mean to scare you and your family. I was just trying to find the grandson of a good friend of mine. That's all. Anyway.
Well, thanks for telling us that story. Now that I know whoever listens to this, those guys, if they ever do, they'll be relieved by that, JJ. But that's a good method, man. What else are you going to do? You didn't know which one, so you did it.
Charlie was hooked, man. A lot of people say, a lot of people Charlie didn't, he didn't think Jason, bullshit. Listen, no one was closer to that man than me. And when we found Jason, meaning Charlie and I, we found Jason, Charlie wasn't letting him go. Charlie was wanting to know everything he could about him. And Charlie was that guy. Charlie, you had to, in order to see, a lot of people wrote to Manson. Don't get me wrong. Guy got more mail than any other prisoner in the history of mail. Trust me. I've seen it. It's abnormal. It's weird. But the thing is Charlie didn't write everybody, and you had to go through a process to get close to the man. But he had Jason checked out upside down one the other, but then he's like, give me his number, give me his address. And then that's when I let it go. And Charlie took over from there. But the thing is I think Charlie got to a point where he wanted to protect Jason from his world. He started to, like, my opinion is he started to fall in love with Jason. And I'll be honest with you, it wasn't until Jason shared a phone call with me of him and his grandfather where Charlie said the words, I love you, to Jason. And trust me, those words didn't come easy from that old man. So, I knew right away that I did something for me. And I get emotional thinking about it, but as someone that cared about him, all I wanted was what was best for him. And I didn't come forward and say, well, I think this is best for you, Charlie. No, that you didn't do that with him. He knew what was best for him. And Charlie kept Jason around until the day he died for a reason, He never lost touch with him and likewise. But the thing is there was a lot of things about Charlie's world. I think Jason didn't realize what he was. And I tried to warn Jason coming into this, like, trust me, bro. There's a side of this like anything, though. There's good and there's bad in anything you do in life. There is. And Jason's a master at weaving in and out of that, just like his old man, and just like his grandfather. I mean, they're masters at survival.
Thanks for sharing that, because, that is important. And that's one reason why we're even sitting down talking today, JJ and Jason. The friendship that we started up was because we're operating in the truthful world. We want the real stories to be told. There's so, like you have said so many times about that world, but also all the BS that's out there that's not true, and all the sensational stuff that's just nonsense. And Jason and I, we looked at each other, we're like, man, we want to tell the story.
Yeah, it's buried. The truth is buried beneath so much garbage. It's almost, in a lot of people's minds, not worth the effort to pick through it's almost like at a yard sale, you got to pick through, get to the gem, that gem being the truth. And I said to a buddy of mine, I said to I got a text message the other day from a guy, Jonathan Winfrey. He was the producer and the director of Jason's funeral. He messaged me the other day, and we were talking about Charlie. And I said to him, I says, let me ask you a question, because he's a guy that he's a Hollywood guy, and he's filming these stories. I says, let me ask you a question. What if there was a 1% chance? Let's just pretend for a moment. 1% chance that everything that old man screamed from the mountaintops until the day he died was true. And a corrupt system got away with the unthinkable. A district attorney, a corrupt, dirty, low, underhanded district attorney got away with the unthinkable. An attorney general in the back pocket of a president of the United States got away with a 1% chance. Isn't that 1% chance worth exploring? What if an innocent man died in prison? And I'm not saying the old man was innocent by any stretch of the means, but he was innocent of what they painted him to be. He died an innocent man, Jonathan. I said, so isn't that 1% chance worthy of exploring? And of course, I never got an answer. Because you know why? I get it, man. These guys are Hollywood men. They depend on that guts and gore and the sensationalism. They're all for a buck.
Yeah.
You know, JJ, and first of all, man, I love the way that you've crafted that question because, in light of all the stuff that we've seen about the FBI and the way they have a tendency to twist things, and I'm putting it mildly, right?
Ooh.
They imagine if what you just asked, that question, 0.5% or 1/4% was true.
Yeah.
My answer would be, yes, it is worth exploring because justice is still justice. It doesn't matter if it's Charles Manson or you or me or Jason. We want justice because that's what we want, the truth. And if the federal government, and you've raised that question before, man, if the federal government had something to do with manipulating the truth and justice.
Oh, they most certainly did.
We want to know, man.
They most certainly did. Listen, Nixon was a lawyer by trade, guys. Come on. We don't need to be rocket scientists to see what happened there. He knew you can't get on national television and hold up a man's photograph on the front page of the New York Times and declare him guilty. Are you out of your mind? But he did it, and he got away with it. That's just one of many instances where that trial should have been declared a mistrial, and it wasn't. But what I'm getting at is you've got to ask yourselves, why does the FBI have a file on Charles Manson where 90% of it's redacted, blacked out? You can't. I've held it. It's as thick as a phone book, dating back to before the murders. Why? Why were the FBI in the photographs? If you look at crime scene photographs, there's FBI agents walking around. Why is FBI agents stomping through a state murder case? Literally stomping all around.
Let me pose a hypothetical here and just go with me on this, JJ. Right? The 60s. Everybody knows about the 60s. The social revolution, higher consciousness, truth and peace and love, and people empowering themselves, right? But you have a government in place that likes to control, manipulate, and they have power. It would seem to me that let's just say the hippie generation, the hippie movement would be somehow a threatening element to society. Now, this is just me based strictly on the conversations we've had. So let's just say they catch wind. Here's this cult figure. Jason and I've talked about this cult figure that's involved in these crimes, which are heinous. We're not making any excuses for those. But let's just say the federal government had an idea to quash that story to end the social consciousness revolution of the 60s, and they could do it with Charles Manson. Is that possible?
No, it's probable.
I'm just saying, man.
It's definite. Listen, everyone knows that Nixon despised the hippies. He despised them. There's tapes of him talking about the Manson case and how he was going to use them. I mean, there's no big giant secret. Nixon saw an opportunity and it worked. He's going to be the new poster child for you want to be hippie. This is what the hippies are, and that's what Manson was. Manson was a poster child for Nixon to destroy the counterculture, the culture that hated him. There was a war between Nixon and the hippies, and Nixon won. And he used Manson. Manson was his nuclear bomb that finally ended all, once and for all. There's no, listen, Younger and Nixon were best of friends. We all know that. It's a fact. Younger was Bugliosi's boss. Hello, people. You know, and then Nixon gets on national television holding up the New York Times, declaring Manson guilty before even seeing a jury of his peers.
JJ, I have a question for you. What about when my grandfather was brought in for whatever charge it was at the point that he was brought in, then wasn't there somebody there already helping create like the timeline of the book for the Helter Skelter book?
From day one, Kurt Gentry. His name was Kurt
walk
Gentry.
Right with. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, his name was Kurt Gentry. You're right.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you look at the book Helter Skelter, he's a co-author. Him and Vincent Bugliosi.
Okay, so he was in the courtroom like before, or no. From
nope.
what I
Stovitz had the case
he
first.
Was brought into the courtroom at a specific time.
Mm-hmm. All right. Here's what happened. When your grandpa was first arrested and brought in wearing the buckskin during that time, when he was arrested wearing that, you know, the Indian buckskin with the long,
the fringe.
I don't know what yeah. Aaron Stovitz offered your grandfather, and this floored me. I knew your grandpa for about 5 years when I found this out, and I actually didn't believe it until he told me it was true. Aaron Stovitz offered your grandfather an 18-month diminished capacity plea. Testify against Tex and the girls, serve 18 months diminished capacity, and he walked. Of course, that was unheard. Your grandfather would have never, well, he didn't go for it, and he never would, because he come from a world where I'd rather be dead than be a rat. So anyway, that's a different story I'll get into later, but he turned it down. Stovitz was caught violating a gag order by the judge. He was taken off the case, and Bugliosi was immediately brought in. From day one that Bugliosi was brought in, Bugliosi brought along a little puppet called Kurt Gentry. And he planted him in the courtroom from day one. Day one. Now, look, I get it. We live in America. It's a free country. But when a district attorney is planting ghostwriters in the courtroom, already the motive just stinks to me. You know, to me, a district attorney in a perfect world convicts based on facts and facts only. I don't think a district attorney should have the power to manipulate any case, period. But
absolutely not. Yeah,
that's exactly what Bugliosi did. And you ask anybody, and I've been in the same room with many people that were in the same room with Bugliosi, and they were all bullied and threatened into testifying. They were coached. Same with Kasabian. Kasabian was coached. Bugliosi coached them all. Either you testify or you're going to the gas chamber. Either you testify or we're taking your kids. Either you testify and say this or you won't get your daughter back. Either you testify or say this or you won't get immunity. You won't believe how many people got immunity with blood on their hands just to convict your grandpa. And I'm going to name two just right off the top of my head. Linda Kasabian and Danny DiCarlo. These are two people. Mary Bruner, she's another one, that were allowed to walk without serving any time for murder. Mary Bruner was involved in the Hinman murder. She walked because she testified against Charlie. Same with Linda Kasabian. She was at both murders. and she walked. Danny DiCarlo put the murder weapon in Bobby Beausoleil's hand. Danny DiCarlo's the one that sent Beausoleil. Manson didn't send Bobby to Hinman's. DiCarlo did. Get our money back or you're dead. Because he sold them some bad mescaline that supposedly caused a miscarriage and a bunch of people to get sick. The straight Satans were pissed. They wanted their money back. It had nothing to do with Manson. It's all, bro. It's disgusting. I'm serious. It's disgusting.
You know, and it is disgusting. You know, and
it's despicable.
We got people, these leaders in high places, that by virtue of their freaking positions, they think that they can just, you know, put justice in a box and throw it away for those people. But for them, they're allowed to do whatever the heck they want, you know, and we're seeing it right now. I'm not going to even bring what's going on now into this conversation, but we're seeing the FBI right now ignore facts. Anyhow, let's don't go there.
Yeah. So, I'll share something with you that's going to blow your mind about the FBI. Okay, real quick, and I'm not going to say any names because I don't do that. Somebody that was very close to Manson, who was always in the media, always at the trials every day, in the streets, crawling on her knees. And I'm talking about there from day one, right? Who probably knows more about this case than anybody, right? Because she was part of it. But this woman's home was raided, okay? And the FBI followed her. She was petrified. I'm not talking paranoid, petrified. They wouldn't leave her alone. Bro, they planted something in her home that caused her to serve 15 years of her life in prison. They put her away. They put a target on her. And I'm telling you straight up, man, the FBI, man, they're more corrupt than any family I've ever known. They're more corrupt than
mafia.
Listen, all the way up to the day your grandfather died. Oh, I got a visit from the Suits today. He called them the Suits. Now, why? Why were they continuously visiting your grandfather in prison? Why? Half the time he wouldn't even go out there. He would refuse the visit. And they wouldn't announce, say, we're coming next Tuesday. They would just show up, and we're allowed to just show up. You, Jason, you and I have been through the process, bro. You don't just show up to see your grandpa. We know what happens. He's guarded like Fort Knox. But they were allowed to get into the visiting room. Why? Why? What are the FBI? What are they doing with at the time he was 73-year-old man? What do they need from him?
Well, for some reason, they still think there's dead bodies out there floating around that they're still looking for. It's I mean, gosh, if Manson was doing anything at all, and he was raising up this cult, this cult figure image, there would still be people murdering people in the name of Charles Manson, and obviously we haven't seen that. So how manipulative can he really be?
And I think you're right. I think that's another reason why they did it, because I know that they also came to him with the Washington, I think it was Washington, the African American snipers. I forget what their names were. They were
2 guys right around the DC area, I think.
Believe it or not, they came to Manson and asked for his help in solving that case. I don't know. Supposedly that was their excuse at the time. There was a few cases they went to Manson for help for, like he would ever work with the FBI. It was just unheard of. Sure. And like the book that came out that he was an FBI informant and that he was a CIA secret agent. It's all bullshit. Man, Charlie wouldn't piss on the feds if they were in flames. He just wouldn't. He despised them because in his mind they ruined my life. And he's right. They painted me to be this hippie cult leader. He hated that role. He despised it. He would always correct, and that's what blew me away. Is like if anyone with a half a brain would say, "Wait a minute, if this guy really was a hippie cult leader, wouldn't he take the opportunity now that he has more fame and publicity than he ever did before the murders? Wouldn't he use that to build a massive giant family?" He
embraced it, right?
he did the opposite. He avoided it like the plague. If you watch any interview with Charles Manson, he took offense to that role, that hippie cult leader. Like, what do you like? What? Follow me? Where are you going to follow me? To the shower? You know, like if I could brainwash, you think I wouldn't brainwash my way out of here? You know, he would.
You know, it doesn't surprise me. You know, everybody, you know, people who are in positions of power like that at the highest levels, they pull all the strings. You know, they can you just talked about redacted paperwork. You know, they can pretty much do whatever they want. And you just said, JJ, and get away with it. And that's the despicable part of it. And when we talk about the truth, we just want it. We just want the truth.
We deserve it, bro. We
do. It. We deserve the truth. And it makes perfect sense that the counterculture of the 1960s was a direct threat to the control and the manipulation and the power of the federal government, because people were waking up. They were questioning things like the Vietnam War and things that were going on with the environment. And they were poking the bear. And from the way you just described it, Nixon was the bear at that time. And it does raise a good question. Why would the feds be involved in a state murder case?
Exactly.
This doesn't make any sense to me. And to a lot of other people.
I'm going to share something with you that I know. I had a conversation with him one time. And I said to him, Charlie, why didn't you just get up on the stand and tell them that, bro? And I'm not going to say what he told me. I said, why didn't you just, like, why did you act so fucking nuts? Like, why? And he just cut me right off. And he said, act? You think I had a choice? Do you think any way I acted mattered? He said, son, I was fighting for my life. He said, I had to stay alive. And the only way I could do that was to be crazy. And I thought to myself, wait a minute. You know what? Every time you see Manson in an interview, he's all like talking nuts and he's acting nuts and he's all crazy. What better fucking way to keep the feds away from you? Hey, look, we got the world thinking mental. We can't listen to anything he says. He's insane. Look, he's in Vacaville. They got him locked up in an insane asylum. You know why? Because it kept him alive. That crazy act you saw, that swastika on his forehead and those funky dances and those wild eyes and that it was an act. It was a shield. It was his shield. It was a way of him to survive. It was either he knew if he, and it's my belief, and no one will ever change this, that the crazier he was, the further the Fed stayed away from him. Because look, we don't got to worry about him now. What's he going to look? Because he said something to me one time. He said, I said to him, I says, another time, I says, why didn't you just say that, Charlie? And he says, do me a favor. He says, close your eyes, soldier. Just close your eyes. Close your eyes. I said, oh, go ahead. He said, I want you to envision Oswald. Remember Oswald? Yeah. Remember that look in his face when he met Jack Ruby? And I said, what? He said, that look in his face when he met Ruby. You'll never see that look in my face. No, you'll never see that look in my eyes. Got to roll, soul, click. And it took a few minutes for me to think about what he just said. You remember the look in Oswald's face when he met Jack Ruby? The only thing I could think of is when he shot him. He didn't meet Jack Ruby. Jack Ruby met him.
And then Jack Ruby died, right? I mean, come on, man.
Exactly.
Talk about a trail of blood.
And then all of a sudden, Vincent Bugliosi's doing books about JFK assassination, and Manson's using the term comparison between him and an assassination. What, like, come on, man. Because we all know Oswald was assassinated. Jack Ruby.
I know. I mean, it's called common sense, man. It's called intuition. And you know what?
And anyone that knows me knows I am not a conspiracy theorist. People, let's get that straight. I hate that. But I can only look if it's black, it's black, man. If it's white, it's white. And that's the way it is with me.
And
There's no in between.
Yeah, that's the way those times were. And it's funny you mentioned Oswald, because I saw a clip of him where he was on the camera and he's saying, "Hey, listen, I'm just a scapegoat." He was telling the interviewer that he didn't do it. And you'd have to be, I don't even see how you could, and we could go there. And I know people talk about woo woo and conspiracies, but you'd have to be really to pop off those rounds as quick as they did. Anyhow, that's a different story for a different time. You know, what do you want with the things that you've raised and things we're talking about? What would you like to see happen, man, with the Charlie Manson story? What would you like to see happen?
In a perfect world, I would love to see, which I know will never happen, the case reopened under fresh eyes, unbiased eyes, all the evidence and lack thereof, because we all know there was not one single shred of evidence against Charles Manson. None, zero, zilch. You got the killers themselves who said he told them to do it. That's it. And that's not even the case. That's Tex Watson's word, basically. But what would happen here is you got killers who used him to lessen their own involvement, a district attorney who used him to fulfill his lifelong destiny and rags to riches, fame, fortune, and notoriety and public political aspirations beyond anyone's wildest amount. That's Bulliosi. That's no secret. It's out there. You can find it. Then you got a district attorney whose boss, Evel Younger, who was a attorney general in the back pocket of the president of the United States, who used him to kill the counter. So, I mean, you got everyone that uses this man, and I would just love to see all those people outed, and I would love to see all of them pay for what they've done. You know, we all know what great President Nixon turned out to be. You know, he was a corrupt scumbag, plain and simple. And men like Manson suffered because of it. And I get it, man. A lot of people probably listening to this right now going, this guy's nuts. Manson was a scumbag. You know, that's what Manson wanted you to think. You know, that's what you're conditioned to believe. But I knew the man for over 8. I'm telling you, that Manson you saw was the complete polar opposite of who he was. And I think he was afraid of being who he really was and speaking on what he really thought happened and what really did happen, because he was afraid he would be assassinated, or he was super paranoid. That I mean, super. He used to have other inmates open his mail. He wouldn't even open his own mail. He was so deathly afraid of anthrax, and you know, people would send him baby powder, and I'm telling you, and he was petrified of retaliation. That's why he kept that crazy act going to the day he died. But what I'm telling you is when Manson knew he didn't have a year left to live, that mask was gone. That crazy Manson mask was gone. It was no more. If you listen to my phone calls, my last set of phone calls with Manson, you would, on how normal, just like us, like we're talking. And I want to see the people that created that myth and that who took that man's life away pay for it. And they can't, because they're all dead now. But you know what? Expose them. Expose the truth. For me, in a perfect world, to have the truth exposed, and for Tex to finally put that Bible down, just be honest and open and tell the goddamn truth. And it's the same with Danny DiCarlo. I know you're out there, and I know you're probably listening, and you know, and I know Manson wasn't your leader. If anything, it was the other way around. He was more afraid of you than you were of him. You put that weapon in Beausoleil's hand. You sent him to Hinman's to get your money back. Tell the truth. Bugliosi threatens you. You either testify or you're going to the gas chamber. Testify and I'll let you walk. And you walked. And you know what, brother? I don't blame him. Who knows? Maybe back in those days, if my life was on the line, No, I can't say I would have done that, to be honest with you, because I would have just rolled the dice and went before a jury. I'm not a coward like you, DeCarlo. I wouldn't have turned on an innocent man. I would have, but I would love to see these people come out forward and tell the truth. I would love Linda Kasabian, who's out there, come forward and tell the truth. Linda Kasabian, if you're listening, the same goes for you. You know, to that house that night was your and Texas idea. You know you got blood on your hands, and you know you turned on Manson to save your own ass, and I don't blame you for it, woman. You went and lived a long, good life and had children and got arrested a bunch of times for coke, but hey, whatever, that's your life. You lived a free life. That man died in a 6-foot cell on a slab of concrete because of you. Be a woman. Do the right thing before you meet your maker. That's the only thing I ask of you, is to be a woman and come forward and say, you know what? Yes, I did that to walk. I did what Bugliosi asked me to do, because anyone that looks at your interviews with him, you were his puppet. We all see it. You couldn't speak without him interrupting you. We see it. We don't blame you. It's all him. But do the right thing and come forward and set this man's soul free. You have a right to redeem him. You have a right. You have the power, not a right. You have the power. We have the right. We have the right to know the truth, Linda. Just come forward and tell the truth. That's all I ask. And in a perfect world, that will happen. But we all know we don't live in a perfect world. We all know that. But, you know, Manson, to me, I think, and you know what, Kasabian and DeCarlo, I want you to know this. That man died speaking highly of both of you. Both of you. He never once had a bad thing to say about any one of you. And he says he didn't blame you. But I tell you one thing, if I had the power, they would be in prison. Both of them. Both of them. But you know what? There is no statute of limitations on murder, so I can see why they're not coming forward and why they're not speaking up. But and Bugliosi's gone now, so there's no one to pay for the price of a man's life. You know, Manson had a chance to get out. We almost got him out. Me and Nicholas Schreck. Charlie didn't want a new trial. He was petrified that he'd be found guilty again, and now we see the death penalty because it was reinstated. But
yeah,
he was petrified of that. He didn't, you know, he didn't want to die. He didn't. As much as he said he didn't fear death, then why you got inmates opening your mail if you didn't fear death? You know, of course you fear. We all fear death. We all fear death. But Manson was a different breed. He was my kind of breed. He was the kind of man that when he gave you his fucking word, you can bank on it. He was the kind of man that would rather die in a 6-foot than 6 cell sleeping on concrete than snitch. He would.
Here we are. Here we are 50 freaking years later, and there's still all of these unanswered questions. And, you know, JJ, your comments and your pleas are the exact reason why Jason and I decided with the Redemption podcast show to do it, because it's true, man. Everybody knows the truth, what you just made pleas for. You just want the truth out there, and it will. I don't know those people, just from what I've read, but if they do the things that you plea and ask them to do, they will be set free.
That's right, bro.
In their hearts, in their minds, their souls, wherever you go to find freedom, you find it by being truthful and honest and authentic. And those are some, we've talked about some relevant stuff, man. And it's stuff that you said a little while ago, we deserve to know, because a lot of people have been hurt. And even the victims on the other side, the people that were hurt and murdered and those family members, we get that, and our hearts go out to them too. But there's always two sides to every story. And if the federal government is implicit in some nefarious scheme to shut down people trying to find higher consciousness, then that's something that needs to be heard and needs to be told.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know something, you look at, let's look at Miss Tate, for instance. This woman lost more than probably just as, she just lost a beautiful daughter. That woman, I admire her so much, the strength. But even she never blamed Manson. She's like, you ain't fooling me. That man was a scapegoat. You know, she's telling you go back and look at her interviews. She'll tell you she knew Manson had nothing to do with her daughter's death. She knew it went beyond that. So did her husband. But what? But you know, everybody's so fast to
good.
yeah. But the thing is for me anyway is a lot of people don't care. You know, they like to ride the guts and the gore. But you know, I look at it like this: if you don't have justice in any case, right? What's the point? What's the point of having a trial? What like I think Brian Davis said it best one time. He's like, you know, and Brian's not a Manson supporter. He doesn't even really like the guy. He's a truth supporter. And he said something along the lines of, he's like, if we turn a blind eye to one, we're going to turn a blind eye to them all. What you don't care until it's you, until it's your rights that are taken away.
Mm-hmm. You or your family member, yeah. That's when everything changes. That's when you want the system to be in your corner.
That's it. And you know something, the saddest part about it is, and I hate to say this because, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but my God, they took a man with a third grade education. Sorry, let me rephrase that. They took a mentally ill man with a third grade education who had the mind of a child, and they turned him into a hippie cult leader, and they turned him into the most evil man in the world, and used him in more ways than one, and they got away with it. And it's people like you guys and Brian Davis, who has his TLB show, who refuses to let go until the truth is exposed. And there are, I think, thank God now that Charlie's gone, there are more people interested in wanting to know the truth than that same old helter-skelter horse shit. They just don't want to hear it no more. It just doesn't make sense. And there's a reason why it doesn't make sense. Because it's not true.
Well put. Well put, JJ. We appreciate you coming back again and joining
anytime, bro.
Jason and I to tell the truth. And you know what I love about you is, you know, you speak from the heart. And anytime, like you just said about Jason earlier at the start of the show, when you speak from the heart and people are listening, you know it. You know when somebody's BSing or when somebody's really passionate for the truth. And thank you for that. It means a lot to us to have you on the show.
Absolutely, bro. My pleasure. Anytime for you guys. You know that.
And for the listeners out there, thank you for listening. And Jason, I know I'll be seeing you soon.
Yes,
Jason, love you, brother.
Love you too, brother.
Appreciate you guys.
Buddy.
Keep them hands
Bye-bye.
up.
Thank you for listening to the Redemption Podcast Show and this exclusive series of the Truth Files. Without your support, there is no show. Join us next time for more truth, more redemption. Everybody knows we can all use some. Thank you.